Welcome to the Frog Pod, your weekly Costa Rican vacations podcast by us here at Costa Rican Vacations. I'm your presenter, Adam Baker, and each week I chat with my friends, colleagues, co-workers and professionals here in Costa Rica about everything Costa Rica related. Today I'm going to be discussing with two of my friends and travel consultants here about getting around in Costa Rica. What does that mean? Chelsey, Kathleen, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Before we begin, Chelsey, for those people who don't know you, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I came to Costa Rica about 7 years ago to work for an adventure tourism company here and do all of their marketing. And then it was a 5-month contract, and then I met my now husband. So that's it condensed. So
Wow.
Married and officially Tika.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was it that brought you down to Costa Rica originally?
It was just that marketing program, really. It was to get more marketing experience and to help run an outdoors program. I was really into getting people out into the jungle, so played kind of Tarzan and Jane for a year.
Fantastic. Yeah. And how long now have you been planning vacations with us to Central America?
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years now.
Nice. Time goes by quickly, right?
Yes, it flies. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Kathleen, tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. I am from North Carolina. I moved to Costa Rica about a little over 4 years ago, with my study abroad program. It was my senior year of college. I was doing the extra lap. What is that they call that? And decided to come down here and finish my biology degree and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I said, I'll stay another year, moved to the beach, and here we are 4 years later, still in Costa Rica.
Happens so quickly.
It does.
Did you choose Costa Rica specifically because of your biology degree? Or was there another reason?
I did. So I was actually studying human biology, and they had a program to get involved in the CAHA here, which is the public, what is it called? The public healthcare system, yeah. And it was the only one in Latin America, so I said, I'll come to Costa Rica. I knew nothing about the country at all, and then I got here and fell in love. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, so you guys are both in a really good position to discuss our theme of this week, which, as we know, between us, I guess we're talking 20 years experience as expats now in Costa Rica. Getting around the country, as small as it is, can be quite challenging. There's also many different ways of traveling around Costa Rica. So I guess a question that we get asked a lot, and the one we should address first, is how many methods of traveling in CR are there? So, Chelsey, what pops to your mind? What do we think initially?
I mean, car. The first one that came to my mind was horse, because that's how I...
We're going back.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, I think they ride around here. No, we're not that. We're more advanced.
We're a little more advanced than that.
That's how I got around when I first got here.
I've got Pablo's face in the background. Didn't expect horse off the bat.
I just think about horses. No, horses, cars. Now I'm getting specific. Cars, trucks, SUVs.
Well, rental cars.
Yeah,
so
rental cars.
Rental cars, from a tourism, I guess, number one.
Buses. Buses is kind of like the backpacker intro.
Public transport.
Public transport.
Uh-huh.
I mean, private shuttles. I would say that's probably our biggest, not like our clientele, Costa Rica vacations.
Yeah.
Get around via shuttle, which is the one that I most recommend.
And that's how most first-time visitors will go.
Yeah.
Private drivers and whatever the vehicle is.
And there's also shared shuttle, I guess.
Shared
so
shuttle.
So we're up to about 4 standard.
Planes, small planes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Domestic flight.
And Skyway.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Skyway. And there's a train in Costa Rica. But maybe we'll get to
train.
Maybe we'll get to that in a bit
to
explain more.
It
But let's start with those principal 4 or 5 then. So at entry level, if you will. So you've come, you're traveling around on a budget, a hostel, getting around, saving some money. Do either of you have any stories so our listeners can understand a bit more about public transport?
It's really affordable. Like when you first get here, it's shocking how cheap it is. And the first thing that comes to mind is kind of, no offense to them, I've traveled on hundreds of buses here, but you do get what you pay for.
Tell me about what's the price range? What are we talking about?
Oh, I mean, I honestly haven't done one in a couple of years, but I think anywhere from $8 to $10 to get to the coast, and then maybe $15 across the country. It's
like $5 to get to Jaco from San Jose.
Yeah,
which is insane.
When I first came over here, I remember, like you just said, it was about $12 to go on a 5-hour bus journey from San Jose to the Caribbean side around Puerto Viejo. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, 5 hours in the UK is costing me, I guess, in dollars about $60-$70.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that blew me away.
And they were better than I thought. I've done other buses, like chicken buses throughout Central America, and I only ever had one bus experience in Costa Rica that I actually sat next to somebody with chickens.
Only once.
Yeah, only once.
Only once.
So it's a good track
Exactly.
record.
Well, I never have,
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
don't. I wouldn't say that's the norm.
Yeah, no, but you do get into these situations. It's how everybody travels, like all of the locals and a lot of backpackers. So you do see a huge variety of people on them.
And what is the downside?
It takes a long time.
It takes a long time. Sometimes they have like buses that are called like collective, and so they stop every 5 minutes. It
It's
seems
so
like
annoying.
to
right?
get
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah, yeah.
that should take you like 3 hours.
Yeah.
It can sometimes take 6 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's not air conditioning,
I was gonna say,
which
climate
really
control.
sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
I've noticed some of the public transport between the two major cities of Liberia in the north and San Jose, where we are. They have a couple of good AC options that are the express services.
Yeah.
They're not collective, but generally I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes you could do a journey that takes 3 or 4 hours, and it could take 5 or 6
Yeah.
because of the amount of stopping. A question I used to get asked a fair amount is, how safe is it? I think it's pretty safe, right? They seem to be really good. You keep your belongings with you.
I was gonna say, you do have to have like common kind of travel sense of, you can't just kind of let everything go. You do have to keep all of your carry-ons with you. That's the only thing I've ever heard of, is you shouldn't put your stuff in the overhead.
I always heard to put it in the overhead, like not that's above you, but that's next to you, so you always have your eye on it. And if you usually if you're going on a 4-hour bus ride, they'll stop halfway so you can get some snacks or go to the bathroom, whatever, and just bring your stuff with you.
Yeah.
And it's really, I've never had a bad experience, and I've been all over Costa Rica.
Yeah.
True.
So
I was going to ask you, Pablo, what do you think? I'm going to give you a microphone. What do you think about your experience? I know you've travelled around a bit. From a local perspective, in the public transport?
Well, it's pretty good. Takes you everywhere. The worst trip I have taken on a bus is from here to Puerto Jimenez.
That's a long.
Ooh, yeah.
8-hour trip. Stops like in a place called Brujo. It takes the whole day, so I don't recommend that.
was there
I got my toothbrush stolen there as well.
Oh.
Your toothbrush
Out of all
stolen.
things.
Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody needed it more.
Yeah.
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 That's a long one.
It's a really long one, yeah, and it's a beautiful trip if you do it by car, because you can stop and scenery is pretty nice. But by bus is terrible, dude.
Yeah, no, I've had those experiences. So would you say the step up from public transport is shared minibuses?
Yeah.
So when we say shared, I've done a lot of trips on either like businesses like Interbus. They travel just about everywhere for the main tourist spots around the country. Grey Lines. You're spending about $40-50 more or less per person, and you're probably in there with 6 to 8 other people.
Yeah.
Have you
But
experienced
it's pretty.
that?
They're pretty spacious. Yeah, I've taken Interbus from I believe somewhere in Guanacaste. And yeah, it's, 6 people, 8 people sounds like a lot, but they're pretty big, they're spacious, there's enough room for your luggage also, it's air conditioned. That is a huge, to me, that's worth the extra $30-40 to have that, and just comfort all around, yeah. If you have the extra buck to spend, I would say that's the way to go.
I found that it's quite a nice way of actually meeting other travellers
Yeah.
as well, because you're in a kind of confined space and you're there for a couple of hours and you feel like, you can share stories if that's something you want to do. And of course they stop halfway. You go, you always have like a real Tico soda, or you're stopping in like a little cafe, right?
It's a good hybrid of, it gets you there fast, but you still do have those little stopovers. Like everybody gets on at the same point usually, and everybody gets off, so you don't have that. What Kathleen was saying about was stopping at everybody's front door for 2 miles.
That's true.
To pick up their chickens. And
Although saying that, I will say some of the Interbus trips when you're coming back to San Jose, you do stop in a couple of different hotels.
Okay.
Once I came back from Guanacaste, I was doing a shoot, and an extra hour from Santa Ana, which for anybody who lives here is about half an hour away, really close, nice barrio, but it just stops from like 3 or 4 hotels.
Okay.
It's like, it's an extra hour. It's rush hour, But overall, it's a pretty good experience. Really safe.
It's a really good way to cross the borders too, to go to Panama or to go to Nicaragua, because they kind of handle everything for you. So it's like going in a little private car. Yeah.
So I guess, and then if we keep going on the scale, as we're getting a bit more luxurious, private transportation. I always think makes a lot of sense, especially if you're traveling in a family.
Yes.
So whereas Interbus is literally $50 more or less per person, if you're traveling with a group of 4 or 5, are we talking around $250-$400 each way for a private transportation?
More or less, yeah. It depends how far. If it's, I know off the top of my head, San Jose to Manuel Antonio is like $250.
Nice.
So that's 5 people. And there you go. It's private just for you guys. But even if you're not 5, if you're 3, I still think it's worth kind of that extra.
Tell me a little bit about what anybody could expect from a high-end private shuttle.
Yeah. Well, you're in control, and that's what I always tell people is that you can stop if you see a nice photo op, you can stop. The drivers do these routes 365 days a year, and so they know where to stop. They know the nice little sodas, the local restaurants, souvenir shops. You're kind of in control, I think, versus even a shared transfer, you're not in control because you're sharing it with other people. But with the private, it's more, I think, personal, I think.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest jump in value is that all of a sudden with the other 2 options, I mean, really it's going up in tiers. With the bus, you never interact with the driver. You know, you give them 50 cents and that's it. And then with the shared shuttle, they usually have Wi-Fi and they'll give you a password and maybe they'll chat with you and you're in the front. But a private driver, they're like a guide, they're a translator, they're a driver, they're like the all-in-one package in the car. Yeah. And they'll point out, my favorite thing about it, I'm really into kind of nature tourism and all of that, and they're so good at pointing out, they're the ones that will stop on the side of the road if they see like a troop of howler monkeys and let the whole family get out and hang out with the monkeys. Like you would never get that on the other options.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's part of it. That's a great way of seeing Costa Rica.
Yeah.
As well, right? Like you say, it's private, and those experiences of stopping to try the freshest pineapple that you've ever had. And the driver knows the spot.
A lot of my clients tell me that their favorite parts of the trips are the private transfers. Yeah, because it's so personal, and I feel like a lot of people look for that when you're coming to a foreign country. You want to kind of feel like you're a part, and that's totally the vibe
and the drivers are local too, so you get to hang out with local ticos and get kind of that intro. Yeah. And then outside of like monkeys and pineapple, there's also like a really practical side, especially with families. Like I was a nanny, so I know what it's like when kids have to go to the bathroom. Seriously, like families always need like potty breaks for their kids.
That is a really good
no, truly. Families like it's
adults
so nice.
Need potty breaks too.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen many families now on the shared shuttles. Yeah. And the private ones, that's it's a massive point. Yeah, because they're not going to stop. Wherever, unless there's some big issue.
No, there are things to keep in mind. I mean, it's a new country, it's new styles of roads. If you only live in the city and you're used to kind of stop and go fast, direct lanes, like maybe being up in the mountains, you want to go a little bit slower. If anybody has any type of, if they get car sick at all, if they, there are those really practical points too. That it'll be the most comfortable ride that you'll have.
That's so valid. That's invaluable information. Perhaps though, like Pablo was just saying, even if you're on a shuttle bus or a private transport, to get to the OSA, for example, 8 hours driving, maybe 6 on a shuttle bus, 8 on the public transport. Domestic flights.
If you have luck, though.
If you have luck. Domestic flights is the way to go to save time.
Absolutely.
But let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons. They fly to a lot of the key areas. Right? There's small airstrips all over the country, the major airports here in San Jose. But Kathleen, how would you benefit the cost? Does it cost a bit more, right? Over the time you save?
Yeah, depends. Sometimes it's more cost effective to fly because if it's a couple and they want a private transfer, that might be $400. They're going to spend about half of that flying domestically, and you're saving a lot of time. My favorite part of that, and this is coming from somebody who swore she would never get on a little hopper domestic airplane. Until I started working for CRB, I said, no way.
She was very scared.
Yeah, I was really scared. It's just such a beautiful way to see the country. It's cost effective sometimes, saves you a lot of time, and you won't see Costa Rica like that.
True. How did you get over your fear of flying for the first time on a small
being with my friends? just people
holding hands really tight.
Holding hands really tight.
Sweating profusely.
Sweating profusely. Yeah.
Actually, I think somebody was taking a video of you, right? Somebody was taking a video, and you had to act really calm.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was going to be on Facebook.
Yeah. Otherwise,
I can't be the
I have to be calm and
consultant.
collected. I have to be calm and collected.
Yeah. No, it is a beautiful way, and you fly about 10,000 feet, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of flights go out in the morning, and as we know, the weather in the morning in Costa Rica mostly is wonderful. So the scenery that you can see.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
It's something else.
It's something else.
Yeah.
No. Have you had any fun experiences flying? Have you ever had any difficult?
Define fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Difficult.
Yeah, well,
No.
like let's say most of us here in Costa Rica know we don't fly in the late afternoon in the rainy season.
Mhm.
Yes.
It gets a little bit rocky. Is that
Yeah.
the best way to put it?
I was gonna say, I always tell people, if you want a long transfer, like that road to Puerto Jimenez is a very long ride, but it's worth the private transfer if you are not a fan of turbulence, because
Yeah.
it can be. I mean, Costa Rica has the central mountain range that goes north to south completely down the country.
You gotta get out of it.
And that, my dad's a pilot, and I grew up flying small planes with him, and that's something that you try and avoid these mountains because they get these nice little windy, and then you have the Pacific and the Caribbean Ocean and all these temperatures. So it is definitely worth it. You have to fly in the morning, but even then, like, you have to know it's going to come. Like,
Yeah.
if somebody thinks it's going to be the most smooth, amazing flight, then you're setting them up to have a little surprise in the air.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a fair way of putting it. It's also
surprise.
a little surprise. You lower expectations.
Yeah.
You keep it realistic. And I will say that I've flown a lot in the
Yeah.
12 years that I've been here, and they're usually quite smooth,
Yes,
especially the
yes.
morning
Oh,
flights.
really?
Like
Yeah.
majority of the time, I maybe have had 1 or 2 flights among maybe 100 flights. One of the times I was coming back from Coco, and the storm, as we know in the central region, in the afternoon you kind of hit this wall of water. But I look at the pilots; they're totally calm.
That's what I always say. That's what I always tell my clients is sit in the front so you can watch the pilots, and as long as they're not freaking out, you're good.
Yeah.
And also another thing, because I taught English for a little while here, and a lot of my students were studying aeronautical science to be pilots, and Costa Rican pilots are world renowned.
Yeah,
they really know what
they
they're
are.
doing, and they have to because of the way that the country is, the mountain ranges, the different parts. So I think that was something that calmed me down a lot, like that they're so sought after. So
that's a great piece of information.
We're in great
I
hands.
didn't know that. It
Yeah.
actually makes sense. I heard that San Jose is actually one of the hardest airports in the world to land.
mhm.
Yeah.
We're at 3,000 feet. You've got these crosswinds from the mountains and the volcanoes.
Mhm.
You've got this hot air rising from the town on the other
Uh-huh.
side of the
Mhm.
airport. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, again, maybe cost you a tad more or save you money if you're a couple, but also you get there a lot quicker.
Well, and it's almost like taking a tour. Like, to me, that's half of it's your morning of just seeing the country from a totally different perspective. And it's not at all like sitting in an international airport, like where you have to sit for 2 hours and fall asleep on your bags.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Turn up maybe
Yeah,
an
yeah.
hour before your flight.
yeah, it's super chill. I think even in some of the southern airports, I think they give you like a coated piece of plastic as your
Yeah.
as your
It's
ticket.
really funny.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Like you when you fly back, you can find yourself in some strange airstrips.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
really
Oh, yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
a yucca field. There's vegetable
Yeah.
that grows here in Arenal, waiting at the side for this plane just to pick you
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
then it comes and then off you go.
Where was it? I think it's the Golfito airport that sometimes there are cows grazing on it and you have to like, come on.
Gotta get out of here,
The
guys.
pilot goes
Yeah.
down just to shoot them
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
once, loops around,
I'm more
comes
stressed
back.
about that when we're landing. It's
Yeah.
like, please don't hit it.
That is an experience. That's a legit way of thinking about it. Or you're flying into a rainforest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
tiny
yeah.
airstrip, and
Yeah.
suddenly, you feel like you're off the beaten path. Well, that's covered 3 of the main ones. I guess the other big one is the rental cars. So you want to self-drive around the country.
Mhm.
Chelsey, what do you say to people asking to drive in Costa Rica? I want to drive myself.
I ask what kind of roads they're used to driving on at home is the biggest thing, because I think a lot of people see it as like an off-roading opportunity and something like that. And the fact is that you'll probably be in at least 1 or 2 big cities. Like you might be in Liberia or in San Jose, so you do have to be ready for that part of it too. Just kind of like gross city traffic jam style driving. It's not all driving up in these beautiful vast mountain ranges and everything. And I always make sure that they're ready for the variety of roads that they'll drive on when they're here. And then also like all the little things that make Central America so quaint and cool to experience, like water buffalo on the side of the road on your way to Hoko, and like truly, and river crossings and all of these things that are so cool. If you're the driver.
Yeah.
I clearly don't
Yeah.
drive.
Chauffeur.
Oh, yeah,
Driving your
chauffeur.
rental car.
The butler.
Extra charge.
Yeah.
That's what I call my husband, the chauffeur. the driver, then you have to be ready for that type of stuff. And there are some just little nuances of driving in Costa Rica. Like, you shouldn't drive at night most of the time because you get into little towns and, like, kids play out in the yard and close to the road, and I just keep talking about cows, but there are a lot of cows here.
Really
Yeah,
are.
especially when you're out in the in the fields and the campesino areas, as they call it. Do you need a 4x4, Kathleen? Is that essential?
It's not essential for every part of Costa Rica. It depends where you're going to be going. For example, in the Nicoya Peninsula, you definitely need a 4x4 there. The roads there, that's more of rural Central America. I used to live in Santa Teresa, which is in the Nicoya Peninsula, and so I'm very biased. But I think that they're the most beautiful beaches in Costa Rica, but you need a 4x4 to get there. Versus Manuel Antonio, which is about 3 hours outside of San Jose. It's a pretty straight shot down the coast along the highway. Not the kind of highway that you're probably used to in the U.S. Just one lane. Probably will have to pass some chicken trucks and some cows.
Lots of cows.
But you don't need a 4x4 for that.
Do you, when your guests ask you, do you recommend anyway having a 4x4 just in case they find themselves maybe turning up to a tour or somewhere they didn't experience?
I do.
Or you really feel like it's fine?
No, if you're willing to spend a couple extra dollars, it's worth it to have the 4x4. Otherwise, I just recommend just a higher car rather than like a sedan, with
higher suspension.
Exactly. I think that's more necessary.
And what about insurance? Do you tell them just to get full coverage, just to be sure, in case you're crossing a river and the front of your car falls off?
I was going to say, all of this ties into, though, because I think we've probably found the same, is that most people, when they do choose to rent the car, most people call and they want to rent a car because they're used to being independent and they want to see the country, but it really does depend on where you're going, like what hotels you're picking, what areas of the country. So I think the only times that I've really had people rent cars is when they want an adventure, when they want to beach hop and they want to go out and do all these things. So it just kind of becomes automatic yeses for these. If they're going to use it as like a tour, to go beach hopping and cross rivers, full insurance, 4x4.
4x4.
Yes.
Or not at all.
Or not at all.
Yeah. If you're fully covered, you're probably not going to have much of a...
Enjoy it. And GPS.
That's a good question. So
Yeah.
somebody asked me about that. Do you get GPS with a car, or everybody has it on their phones nowadays? Waze, Google Maps?
So there's an option to rent it. I think it's like $10 or $20 a day to include it with your rental. And if I always ask, a big thing that I ask my clients before taking the plunge and giving them the rental car is if they have an international phone that gets service.
Yeah.
If not, then I recommend the GPS. I also ask them how their Spanish is. Because sometimes you might find yourself in situations, if you get a flat tire, you might be in the middle of nowhere and people might not speak English. So how's your Spanish? How's your driving?
And there's no such thing as AAA, at least that I know of.
No. I found in our experience, we work with most of the major brands.
Yeah.
Adobe are fantastic. They'll
Yeah.
always give you a number that you can call if you have a problem, a flat tire, and you can't fix it, or you get stuck somewhere. I don't think there's AAA per se, but you do get a lot of
that type of a service.
Essentially the same thing, yeah.
Well, guys, that's fantastic. We've covered just about, I think, the main 5. I did mention the train. So Costa Rica used to have a train back in the day, right, Pablo, between the Caribbean side, mainly for exporting goods from the Pacific to the Caribbean. That was from Limon on the Caribbean all the way to Punta Arenas, the city of Punta Arenas. Now I know there's a segment which is mainly used for commuters in the Central Valley, in the Central Region, San Jose, and the local. Have either of you guys been on the train?
I never have.
No, I have not been on it yet, but I've heard good things. I know it doesn't go too fast. You hear it quite far away. It's quite loud.
Yeah.
But it's one of the only trains, I think, in Central America, other than the Panamanian train, right? But yeah, so we should mention it's not something that you don't necessarily need to experience, and it's mainly used for workers. One other thing that comes up is how common is taxis versus Ubers? Like, what's the deal now in Costa Rica, Chelsey, with that?
Part of it depends on your age, I think. Like my parents-in-law have never even heard of Uber, but no, I mean Uber's really, really big in San Jose. I think it's near impossible to find in most beach towns, though. Still, I know I was just up in Tamarindo, and I thought there was one Uber driver in the entire town, so everybody was checking their phone all the time. Like, is he on? So he makes a lot of money, but no, I think most of it is just taxis. I'm trying to think when we go up there. what color taxis are you supposed to take here?
Well, I usually, in San Jose, Uber 100%.
Yeah.
It's easy if you have Wi-Fi. I assume you're calling from your hotel. There's usually Wi-Fi in restaurants if you don't have service on your phone. Uber all the way. But outside of San Jose, I usually just tell people to have their hotels call them a cab. Because we trust them, and so...
Yeah.
I don't think I've caught my own cab. I have a chauffeur.
She's referring to her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think I've actually caught a taxi. I've had restaurants call me taxis. Like, pretty much we go to any establishment and just they know they're people that they trust, and it's usually
When I first came here to Costa Rica, I remember arriving at the airport, and you've got the orange taxis, the official airport taxis, and they charge you a bit more, but they're super quick. And then, of course, there were the red taxis in around the country. The red ones, that's it.
Yeah.
And then obviously Uber came about 3 years ago now in Costa Rica in 2016.
Yeah.
So super safe, and it does
Yeah.
save you money. The service is very good.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is I've looked at some questions online. We got a couple of questions via email. Michelle was asking, we addressed it earlier, but she was asking how long does it take to get from some of the major areas. So I think, Kathleen, you mentioned if you're driving from San Jose Airport to Mount Antonio, Central Pacific is about 3 hours. Guys, what would you say from San Jose to the volcano, being Arenal volcano?
I would say San Jose, from the airport to
from San
Arenal
Jose
volcano,
Airport.
it's about 2 hours and 45 minutes.
And that's also the same for Liberia, right? If you're flying into Liberia in the north to get to the volcano
pretty
as well.
equidistant.
But something
maybe
important.
That's in English, that's how
I think
it's
it's quite equidistant.
Yes, smack bang in the middle. Yes exactly. But if you're flying into Liberia to go to the beaches in Guanacaste in the North Pacific, you're a bit closer, right?
To the beaches.
Yeah.
So
about 20 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, depending on the beach.
Depending on which beach, yeah.
And it's just a really convenient airport. Like San Jose, they're both international airports, but San Jose is just bigger and more kind of in the city center versus Liberia. You're there and out. You can be at the beach right away. It's just kind of a straight shot and whatever. Yeah,
for sure. What about the guests that ask you if they want to visit the volcano in a day? If they're staying at the beach, driving
to Arenal? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are more volcanic regions in Costa Rica, and that's kind of a nice opportunity to teach them more about the northern region, Rincon de la Vieja, and it's not. But most people refer to Arenal as the volcano because it's that perfect cone-shaped postcard volcano. So I think I mean, in my experience, I haven't done day trips to Arenal. I don't think it's just a lot of driving.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's just too much driving.
Yeah, imagine if you have a family and you're at the beach at least 4 hours from the main beaches in the north, and then
to get
5,
there. Just to get there.
Get in the hot springs for 2 hours, and then you turn
and
around.
And then turn around. Yeah.
Pretty exhausting. Paul was asking, what's the best way to get from San Jose Airport into San Jose? So you've just arrived. So what would you guys say? You're not necessarily booking with Costa Rica Vacations. You don't necessarily have a private transport picking you up.
Well, at this point in time, Uber won't pick you up from the airport, because I would usually say Uber, but they won't pick you up from the airport. So it would have to be a red cab that's outside. And when you're coming out of the airport, there's the orange.
Yeah, they're orange. They're the airport taxis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can pay a premium, about $40 more or less, for the orange taxi to take you in, and you can pay for those inside customs, my experience. If you come out, you get the red ones that are driving, but they're going to try and be maybe
I was going to say
break a deal with you, but they're not necessarily going to put the meter on. Always ask for the marea in Spanish, the meter, if you use a taxi. I guess
that was the first thing I learned when I came here.
That's very, very
Except
true.
I would beg. I wouldn't say I would beg.
Yes.
And then I had no idea what it meant.
But you can also see the marea when it runs. The meter runs too fast when they put a little tourist button. Alternate marias. Those meters go too fast. And I think if you do go out the airport a little bit, you can grab an Uber. But like you say,
you got to walk a little bit.
You've got to walk a little bit. Uber's still in this grey area in Costa Rica with the legality and the government.
Well, and a lot of hotels, I think it's always important to check with your hotel too to make sure they don't have airport shuttles, because that's really easy. They'll show up, a lot of hotels, and if you're going San Jose Airport to San Jose Central, a lot of airports do have airport shuttles, and they'll stand out there with a sign. It's kind of an experience to surf the crowd and look for your name and all of the faces.
For sure. I've got one more question here. Juanita was asking, how's the road to Monteverde these days? That's one of those infamous roads in Costa Rica up to the cloud forest. Have either of you been to Monteverde recently?
Man, I have not been in about 3 years.
Okay.
But I went on a public bus, which
Uh-huh.
it was quite the experience. It's
bumpy.
It's bumpy.
Yeah.
It's curvy. But it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you're not prone to car sickness,
take the bus.
Yeah, why not?
When I first came here in my really early 20s, I lived in Monteverde, and I used to take that
really?
public bus. Yeah, I was there for about a year and a half.
Oh man!
Like you say, you get up to the windy roads. Back in the day, it was nearly 30 kilometers that were all like rough roads, stones and so on. And I think they've paved half of it, so maybe 15 to 20 kilometers are now paved up to a town called Guapiles. But Kathleen, you're right. I remember the bus. You'd literally look out the window.
I know, you're like,
and there's
this
just
is
like
it.
500-foot drop, and then you're like, oh, my life's in the driver's hands. You know, never had any problems.
But they
It was
do
great.
this every day.
Yeah.
They do it every day. Is what I was telling myself.
Yeah.
Like they know what they're doing.
It is really windy.
Okay.
If you're in that was the first time I've driven a rental car, and it was years ago, before it was paved.
Yeah.
And it gets so windy that it's like, you know, how you can feel the car moving. And I was like, this is not my favorite location to learn how to drive a stick
That's
shift.
Yeah.
extreme.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think we've covered it, but I got one last question from Adam as well on Facebook that says, is it safe to fly in the rainy season? So your top tips?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, fly in the morning, definitely.
That's
and actually,
the
a lot of routes that are like through bumpier areas only fly in the morning. Like I think the Jimenez route is only 8 or 9 a.m. flights. You can't even take an afternoon flight. So I mean, the airlines themselves watch out for. You know, they know.
Yeah,
Exactly, and you'll be informed.
If they need to,
Totally. Any flights before 12 o'clock, you probably shouldn't have a problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been awesome. Something we always do before wrapping up is I'm going to ask you 5 quick-fire questions based on everything we've been discussing, and you have to give me your first answer. Okay? So it's only 5, so you have to choose between these options. Rental car or private transportation?
Private. Yeah.
Flight to Corcovado to the rainforest, or a long drive to the beach in Guanacaste?
Flight to Corcovado.
Flight to Corcovado.
2 flights.
Absolutely.
A weekend up to Monteverde on that rocky road, or a weekend in Santa Teresa on that rocky road?
Santa Teresa.
Yeah, Santa Teresa.
I'm biased.
Yeah.
You guys, exactly the same. Taking a long taxi ride, you don't know about the Maria in San Jose, or public transport to Puerto Viejo on the Caribbean side. It's a long drive.
Wait, where's the
You're doing a long taxi drive. You don't know how long it's going to be in San Jose, or you're taking the 6-hour bus.
6-hour bus.
6-hour bus, yeah.
Okay, and finally, river crossing or bridge crossing?
River crossing, if you know how to drive.
I'd say
crossing.
bridge crossing.
So
Just
Kathleen's playing it safe. Chelsey
Playing it
is
safe.
going for the... Oh, that's because Chelsey has a chauffeur.
Yeah.
So
yes,
anything goes
that's
wrong,
why.
you have to follow it, exactly. I'd love to ask you before I leave you guys, Chelsey, was there anything you wish you knew about Costa Rica before you came?
Ooh, about Costa Rica transport or
No,
about
Costa Rica in general. About living down
Costa
here.
Rica. Well, I wish I knew that I was going to live here for 7 years and not like 8 months. Would have packed a lot more.
Touche.
Okay.
No, about Costa Rica itself, I wish. Well, my favorite thing that I've learned since being here is that all of the fruits and the seasonality of everything, like trying all the local food, because it gets this bad rap for not having that great of food, and it's really good food.
Yeah.
But you do have to eat locally. So yeah, I wish I had not been biased to not like the Costa Rican food, because yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's great.
I agree.
Yeah.
Kathleen?
I don't know. I would say probably bring a rain jacket. If you're going to more than one place, one of those places is most likely going to be the rainforest. Lots around Costa Rica, and you never know what you're going to get. And I did not bring a rain jacket, and
Was that
my
you didn't know
biggest
that?
regret.
I
know. I told you I knew nothing about Costa Rica.
Everybody.
I knew nothing about Costa Rica. Even a light rain jacket, and you're good.
Or an umbrella.
Though the locals don't wear rain jackets.
No, they don't.
They only carry umbrellas, so you will look like a tourist.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a bad thing. The
No,
longer you live
yeah.
there, the lighter your jacket gets.
Yeah.
Chelsey, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a blast.
Thanks.
What a great
Yeah,
time.
thanks, Adam.
Until next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Who knew there were so many different ways of getting around here in Costa Rica? I hope you found that information useful. Please don't forget to let us know if you have any questions by messaging us in the comments box below this video, or shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Please don't forget to subscribe to follow along for your weekly Frog Pod, your your Costa Rica video podcast series. I've been your host, Adam Baker. Until next time, hasta la próxima.